Hello and welcome to the 35th episode of the Extreme Sports Performance Podcast. My name's Ryan Blake, I'm the founder and director of Extreme Sports Performance. In this episode, I'm chatting DNA profiling with Wez Pooley. Wez is the performance director at Moodoo. Our main discussion is around DNA profiling in health, sport and general life. I also ask him some of the key questions I ask all my guests. Who he is, what he does, where has he come from and what has he done along the way, what are his top areas of interest, what are the most valuable things he's learnt, what are his top resources for information, what are his top pieces of advice, and also where can people find him. Really enjoyed recording this one with Wez. I really think this area is yet to be fully discovered in the world of sport. I hope you enjoy listening to it. Here we go. Hi, Wez. Thanks for joining us on the Extreme Sports Performance podcast today. It's great to have you on. So could you tell everyone who you are and what you do?
Yeah, of course. And thank you very much for having me. My name's Wez Pooley. I am the performance director for Moodoo Health. My background is I'm an ex-international professional rugby player. I then went into education and worked in education, became an academy director of rugby for a private school. Along the way, kind of taught into the PT market, and then started training PTs and strength conditioning coaches, nutritionists in how to basically run an effective business. Luckily, then I was able to work at Premiership level rugby, international rugby, and then moved into Premiership football and international football as an S&C. And then off the back of that, basically founded Moodoo Health, who are a genetic performance profiling company.
Fantastic. And would you be able to tell us a little bit more specifically about what Moodoo do?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're called a second generation genetics company. The reason behind that is we look at genetic profiling, and there's two ways you can look at it. One is DNA. So DNA is fixed from the day you're born to the day you die. So you only need to do it once. But basically what it does, it gives you your blueprint to your body. So the sooner you can do it, the sooner you can find out things like your vitamin mineral deficiencies, which are really important. There's certain types of diet and nutrition you need to look at, what sort of exercise you should be doing, how to recover from certain things. And then kind of what we call them is like health insights, where people are like, I struggle to sleep, I'm stressed, and all these sorts of areas, we cover that as well. So we look at into areas such as stress, sleep, mental health, gut health, heart health, immunity, injury risk. So there's lots and lots of areas where you can look at. And it's to learn not to look at things in isolation, because people tend to look at things in isolation rather than holistically, because there's so many things that affect. And if I use caffeine, for example, people go, oh, caffeine doesn't affect me. Whereas they might not think it affects them from a sleep perspective, but it might affect them from an anxiety perspective. It might affect them from an ability to absorb vitamins and minerals. It might affect them from a fatigue perspective, from anaerobic threshold. And it obviously, therefore, it affects performance, whether it's a corporate world or whether it's a performance-based world. The second part of what we do, and which makes us a second generation company, is called epigenetics. So what we're known as is a longevity company, reversing or slowing down the aging process. So how we do that is we use your DNA. We do it through a saliva sample. So it's really, really simple, non-invasive, sent straight to you, sent straight back to our lab. And then the results come through on an app. And what it does is it just tells you how we can reverse the aging process. So we're looking at your internal health, because everyone looks at themselves externally and goes, oh, I look healthy. So people might go, oh, you're an athlete, you look healthy, so you must be healthy. Well, that's not the case, because there's lots of things that an athlete goes through where they're highly performing, where their inflammation is very high and they're in highly stressful situations. And those two are probably the biggest problems when it comes to aging, that actually mean your aging accelerates over time. And we basically then allow you through science. Everything we do is backed by science. We have our own science teams who work very heavily in the medical industry to have white papers based on everything we do, because we're all about providing you with recommendations that are actionable from your outcome. So you can go, I have this deficiency, this is what I can do. I have this is what I can do. I excel at this, and this is how I can improve it. And that's what we're all about, is providing those actionable interventions to help people improve their health over time, but it becomes sustainable over time.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for a very detailed answer. That's really, really interesting. So our biggest kind of listening demographics, Wez, on the show are athletes of all different levels, coaches of all different sports, teachers and parents. So How could what you've just described help sports performance?
So there's a number of different ways when you're looking at performance affected by a lot of different things. Nutrition is probably one of the first starting points to always look at, because if you're not fueling the body properly, you're not going to perform correctly. If you're not fueling it afterwards, you're not going to recover properly. And that's where probably the athletes kind of aging is faster, because they don't recover as much. They're always overtraining. They always think more is better, whereas actually more is worse, little is better, because it's when you rest and recover, your body actually adapts and changes. But they also don't understand things like neurological fatigue and stuff like that. So that puts a massive amount of stress and inflammation on the body again. From a respect of recovery, again, you obviously, how do you recover? What's the best way to recover? What implications do you have around recovery? And when you're looking at nutrition, people don't understand that the vitamins and minerals that we take are actually the spark plug to the body. Without them, it doesn't matter what carbs, fats, and proteins you eat, they're not going to be absorbed properly by the body. So when you understand that and you make those small, simple tweaks, something simple as adding vitamin D to your diet, that will change your fatigue, it will change your mood, your behavior, and it basically just sparks a massive amount of energy in the body and a lot of other areas that are really implication to basically better performance. And then you've got things like sleep, that people, they struggle to sleep but don't know why. So having this information about why you struggle to sleep, and then how you can manipulate it and understand what protocols you can put into place before then great. And it links across all areas, whether you're a parent or an athlete or a coach or a teacher. You learn about yourself, but then also if you're, like you're saying, if you're a parent or a teacher or a coach, you're learning as much as you can about an athlete. Basically, we're providing you with as much data as possible about your athlete that is different from another athlete. So therefore, when you're programming or when you're doing things with these athletes, they all are slightly different. Yes, you'll find some areas where they're the same, but understanding that they psychologically are different, physically are different, nutritionally are different. They have sleep problems, they have gut problems, they have stress problems, all these things. But once you learn those little snippets, you can put into place a simple kind of 12-week plan based around their genetics, which links into what you're already doing, but is very individualized to what they naturally need, rather than going, I'm just going to guess and I'm going to do this, this, and this because it worked for Bill over there. It doesn't necessarily work for Bob. So it's just learning those really in detailed depth things that you can't change. They are what you're born with, and they are what you die with. So it's understanding those implementations.
It's something which fascinates me, and I've heard a lot of people talk about, but not necessarily a lot of people fully understand it. What would you say the typical things that you've learned personally from your background in pro sport with what you used to do to now? What are the most valuable things that you've learned that can help fill the gaps in the sports performance process with doing this testing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I did it on myself, when I was a professional athlete, the reason I did it was I kept getting soft tissue injuries, and I didn't understand why, because at the level I was at, I had physios, I had heads of medicals, I had massage, I had cryo chambers, I had the supplements, I had the recovery protocols, I had the training protocols, I had the nutrition. So I couldn't figure out, there must be something missing, that I'm getting all this support, but I'm still getting soft tissue injuries. Yeah. And I don't know why. I had implications behind it, but then obviously the genetic profile kind of helped me understand that a couple of the areas I was thinking about were why, but also there were other areas such as vitamins and minerals that I would never know about. So I had like vitamin mineral deficiencies in vitamin C, vitamin B6, selenium, magnesium. And if people don't know much about, say, magnesium and calcium are really synergistic when it comes to muscle stimulation and muscle recovery. So obviously, if my imbalance was wrong and I had too much calcium in, then it wasn't allowing my body to recover properly because magnesium was so deficient. From a diet perspective, I don't process carbohydrates very well. So, with rugby, because that's why I was playing, or any sport really, you're always told carb load, get the carbs in. For me, I don't need it. I eat a good high fat diet. I have a lot of protein, and I might have a little bit of carbs before I play, just to give me that little sugar insulin spike before I play. But I don't have carbs now after I train, because basically for me, it's like pouring petrol on a fire. And basically, when you inflame the body from playing or training, also your gut inflames as well. And if your gut inflames and then you don't know how to uninflame your gut then doesn't absorb what's going into the gut. And then you get things like leaky gut syndrome and stuff like that, where you actually start bloating or you start getting pain and you don't know why. So then you start just cutting out foods randomly and don't understand why you're cutting out foods. Yes, like things like gluten aren't necessarily brilliant for the body. So, as an athlete, I'd always say stay away from, bread and stuff like that, especially before you play, because it's not a brilliant source of carbohydrate. There's better things like, rice is, or sweet potato and stuff like that, which is a better source of carbohydrate. And just understanding that my, like I said, my inflammation and my vitamin mineral deficiencies were probably my two key areas that really now have helped me understand. I'm still playing rugby at this point in time where I'm nearly, well, I'm actually 40, not nearly 40. I am 40 now, still playing a decent level of rugby sevens, and I also play on the seven circuit. So it's good to understand those areas about yourself. And as you get older, obviously, yes, you're going to deteriorate. Yes, you're going to get slower. Yes, you're not going to be as strong, but you can still maintain that at a certain level. You just need to mimic the areas where I knew, without this test, I knew that probably were affecting me, which was overtraining. So I was overtraining and I wasn't recovering as best I could. I was doing too much because I was at the inclination. The more I do, the better I become. Mm-hmm. Therefore, the longer I'll play for, and the more likeliness I'll get picked to play for my country or my club or whatever it was. Whereas actually, the adverse effect of that was I was getting injured. Whereas now, I'm still playing and I don't get in. I haven't had an injury in about 7 years because I've actually understood my body better, and I know when not to push it now and when to push it. And I know that's a difficult thing from an athletic perspective, because you always want to be playing, but that's where, as a coach and a parent, is looking at that scenario and going, well, actually, if then, I call it like you do a wellness report. So you talk to the athlete about how do they sleep, what mood are they in, are they injured? What's their hydration like? Have they eaten properly today? What level of intensity have they been training at this week? Those sorts of things. And basically you come up with a wellness score, and you can work out from that wellness score, and you simply just scale it on a 1 to 10 basis. And out of, say, 60, for example, if I'm 45 or above, I then need to look at it and go, maybe I shouldn't train today and I should do a recovery session. Or maybe I should train, but I need to limit my time to 30 minutes rather than an hour and a half. And simple things like that are really important, no different than at the young ages when children get injured at clubs and they just get sent away and get nothing to do, and then they just come back and then play 2 weeks later. All you're doing is you're then just going to create a bigger injury later on down the line, because all you need to do is just add in simple injury prevention exercises into your warm-up, and then get them to go home and actually do those things and stretch, and give them a little bit of education around what nutrition to do and stuff like that. And that will really, really help people. And obviously the genetic profile's there, giving you that kind of fundamental information to help you then really educate yourself in the processes moving forward.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And we spent a lot of time over the last year really diving deep into readiness and assessing readiness with players. And we found like RSI really useful for that, as well as heart rate variability as well. We think that's really useful. So this is just adding an extra layer into that, really, because ultimately, I guess we're just trying to maximize athletes' opportunities to play, which it all encompasses everything to do with sports science. Ultimately, improving performance and reducing injury are the main things we want to achieve, but maximizing opportunity to train and play is what every athlete wants. So if this can help that more than anything else, then fantastic. That's great. Have you noticed, Wes, more professional athletes and more clubs looking into this now, or is it still early in its growth?
No, I think lots of more clubs are now doing it, and lots more medical teams are using the process in part of their screening at the start of the year. There is, I wouldn't say skepticism around it. It's more who owns the data is the kind of probably the question, because from a sports perspective, they might go, well, if someone else gets hold of that data, is it then going to affect my money, my transfer, or my wages and stuff? Well, no, because it's just saying you have a higher risk of something doesn't mean say it's actually going to happen. So like I've said to people, you're not trying to use it in a negative perspective, you're trying to use it in a positive perspective of, now this is the things you can put into place to make sure that these things over here, these negative things over here, don't actually occur. And that's excuse me, that's what's important behind it. But I think probably lots of clubs more than that will probably admit it are doing it. And I know we've done over 1,000 athletes since we've started. So, and that's, globally, and we're doing more and more now. We've signed deals with, clubs abroad, and we've signed deals with some of the governments who are looking at, running these profiling, for Olympic Games, Commonwealth Games for all their athletes, because they understand how important it is to understand their athletes as best as they can. So it's coming more and more to the forefront. Obviously, what's just happened over the last year is kind of made people understand how important genetics actually is. Yeah. It's now learning that this is going to be really helpful, and for the limited cost that it is, when you look at it and you're going, you're spending £200 on a pair of boots, or you're spending £200 on supplements. Well, if you need to know more about your body, you need to make sure that you're giving your body the right foods and the right vitamins and minerals and the right supplements. So by doing this for, this one-off test, if you want to just do the DNA, then you've got it. If you want to track it moving forward, like you would do with fitness testing, then obviously the epigenetics is the way to, track what you're doing and are you having the benefits from doing that.
I can see this becoming a massive part of, an elite sport setup in the near future in, many areas. So yeah, that really does sound interesting. Would you say that there's a sweet spot to get this done for an athlete? Like, is there an optimal age? Like, is it something that younger athletes should consider, or is it something that you would say senior athletes should definitely do if they've not done it?
Yeah, I mean, if you're obviously now, if you're a senior athlete and you haven't done it, I would be suggesting get it done anyway. Obviously, the younger you have it done, the better. I mean, I've got athletes at the age of 8 that I work with who have done it. We have tennis academies around the world who have 8, 10, 12-year-olds who have done it. We've just signed an agreement with India, so a partner in India who are working with the Indian government and basically are working with schools, colleges and universities, and they're literally about to work with the Olympic athletes with our profiling, because they see it as the way to find out as much as they can about it. Like I say, I've personally done it with my 1-year-old nephew and I think she was 6-7-year-old niece, just because for me it was important to support my part of my family, to make sure that they get brought up the best way possible, because my brother doesn't necessarily eat a lot and isn't really an athlete anymore, and my brother's wife is a vegan. A vegetarian, sorry. So basically her diet's slightly different. So they all eat slightly differently. So it's important that if the kids follow the diets that they're eating, they're probably not eating the right amount of vitamin and minerals in their diets. So therefore they need to know what they are to make sure that the kids are actually getting that, as well as if they know the kids need it, then they need it as well. So it's a way to actually find out and go, if I do my kids, it's actually going to tell me what I need as well, because the kids' genetics has come from me. Yeah,
that makes complete sense. So you're almost looking at it from a complete health and wellness point of view, let alone a sports performance view, and they kind of can go hand in hand. But I suppose with their younger people, it's more edging onto the health side, which makes sense. Last couple of questions, Wes. What would you say your top areas of interest are personally, based on your experience? So bear in mind everything we've discussed with what Moodoo do. Are there any other areas of science or sport that you feel this can really integrate well with, that people might not have thought of in the past?
Yeah, I suppose the first one is always going to be the big one for me to go back to, is vitamins and minerals and supplementation, because our diets aren't the best. Our food quality isn't necessarily the best. Obviously, people tend to buy too many sugary foods or processed foods that aren't of the quality that we need. So that's kind of an area. From an athletic perspective, obviously it depends again what level you're looking at. Obviously the higher level, you're hoping they're getting GPS and heart rate variance and those sorts of things, and they're getting proper testing done, from screening of movement to bloods to lots of different areas of strength, power, speed, all those sorts of things. Like I said to you, depending on what level you're at, I always say that if you keep things simple and be good at the very, very simple things, it's a lot easier then to develop people. When you overdevelop people and they don't understand why they're doing what they're doing and the rationale's not there behind it, then you don't ever get the best from your athletes. So I always say start at a lower level and base it at a lower level, get them to understand how to make change themselves, get them to make the changes. And once they start making those changes, it's easier then to add on, because obviously there's so many, specialist areas in science now that, you could look at force plates in your inner soles in your shoes, to look at injury prevention. You could, like you say, you could look at heart rate variance to look at recovery rates. You could look at, GPS to look at movement patterns and stuff like that. So there's lots of other areas that people then start to look at and do. But I guess once you have your baseline, you can then go, right, I'm not sleeping well, so what can I do here? So you might want to get an Aura ring, because obviously that links to, or a Whoop band, because it links to, health and sleep and all those sides of things. So it depends how severe you want to go into that industry. And the more you actually do, to be honest, isn't necessarily the best, because then you might be stressing the athlete out, because they're like, well, I've got to do I've got to do my osmosis level today. I've also got to do this testing. I've then got to do that. I'm then doing this. I'm then doing that. And they literally don't learn how to live a life and relax, because they're always like they're on a timetable of doing things over and over again.
Simple things done well with good quality over time, consistently, usually add up to the best results. Isn't it? It's just adding layers, and there's so much more complexity than there needs to be in things now. I mean, a lot of that's to do, I think, with companies trying to make money and I suppose making people feel that they must have this or they must do that, when really it's not really about that. It's about, well, how is this going to help you in your environment and the people you're around, which often gets overlooked, I've found. If people are listening to this and think, wow, that sounds really interesting, I'd love to find out more information about what Wez is talking about, where would you say would be a good place for them to start looking for that?
Well, firstly, through you, obviously speak to yourself, and obviously go through it, talk to yourself, have a consultation with yourself, discuss it in a little bit more detail, find out a little bit more about, what their requirements are. And then obviously, looking at our website, or, contacting us directly is more than happy. But obviously, because you're a partner with us, we'd say always go through you. And then if they need more help and support from us, we'll happily help and support you with anyone who needs help and support.
What would you say, based on everything we've discussed today, would be your top pieces of advice for our main demographic of listeners? So, athletes of all levels, coaches, teachers, and parents, who have thought about doing this, but want to kind of take that next step. What would you say your key takeaways would be for those people?
The easiest thing we normally say from a genetic standpoint, you can't Google your genetics. So you're not going to know your genetics unless you do it. But once you have that, like I say, you have your baseline, you have your cards you've been dealt, and then you can work off that and simply understand how to make those stepping stones move forward in the key relations. I mean, maybe one of the key areas we probably should have covered, maybe talking about data protection. So the areas of the app are related to that person. So they have the rights to the data. It stays with them. We have 4 different servers we keep their different data on, so they're split. Nothing's ever stored on your phone, so all their data safe. We comply by all GDPR rules and regulations. There's consent forms on there that they can opt out of different things. So their data's safe and everything's safe. We don't sell data either, so there's another thing that companies do that we don't do. We don't pass on the information. We don't sell data. But again, the key steps then are just looking at the holistic view and going, okay, what am I trying to achieve and what's going to give me most bang for my buck? Once you've obviously had a genetic profile, you'll know the particular areas where you have areas that need improving and you have areas where you are beneficial that you can improve any more, and you'll get better gains from following that instruction. So whether it's a nutritional thing, a vitamin mineral supplement thing, whether it's a sleep or recovery, performance comes from all of those areas. You don't suddenly just perform better for no reason. You perform better from training the right way. And again, that was an analogy I wanted to use earlier, is you watch people in the gym who train like bodybuilders, and they're not bodybuilders, they're athletes. And I say, why are you doing that? And if they can't explain it to me, I always say, well, why do it? If you can't explain to me why you're doing it and it's going to help your sport, then don't do it. Because you just need to, the stronger you are in the simple basic movements, the more robust you be, the less you'll get injured, the longer you perform for, and the better you'll be. Because you want to be, if you're a sportsman or an athlete, you want to train for the functionality of your sport.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. Well, that's great advice to end on, Wes. Thanks very much for that, and also thanks very much for your time today. If people wanted to get in touch directly with you, just to ask you maybe any follow-up questions, what's the best way they can do that?
Yeah, through my email, which is Wez, which is WEZ @muhdo.com, which is MUHDO.com. But I'm sure you'll share that. And then obviously it will come through to me, and I'm more than happily support anyone that comes through and have a conversation with them, a phone call or whatever they need to talk to them, or I can send them more information. No problem at all.
Great. I'll put all that in the show notes. So for everyone listening, just click the links below and you'll be able to directly access everything we've discussed via those links. But thanks again, Wes. Really, really enjoyed the chat, and thanks for coming on the show.
No problems, Ryan. I really appreciate it, and good luck for you in the future.
Thanks for listening to the 35th episode. We hope you enjoyed the show. It would really help us out if you could please leave a rating and/or review on whatever platform you're listening on. Be sure to check out our website, www.extremesportsperformance.com. That has details about our in-person and online services, our in-person and online store, our in-person and online education, our media pages, our contact details, and how to subscribe for free to stay informed about company news and updates. Join our social media community on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. Links to these can be found at the bottom of all pages on our website and via any search engine. Until next time, take care.